Winter turns our town into a trap. That's the simplest way I can put it. Once the snow settles in, nothing moves the way it should. Roads disappear under white crusts. Cell service drops to 1 bar if you're lucky. And people stop asking questions they don't want answered. Not out loud, anyway. Officially, there are a little over 200 households here. On paper, that sounds like a community. In reality, it's more like a collection of people who've learned how to stay quiet and survive long winters without relying on anyone else. The town sits on a shallow hill, sloping gently down toward the river before rising again into pine-covered ridges. Those hills close in tighter every year, like the land itself is slowly folding its arms around us. Down by the water is a stretch of road we call Riverbend. That's where the nicer houses are. Vacation homes, new builds, places owned by people from the city who show up in summer with coolers and jet skis, then vanish the moment the first snow hits. I live closer to the school bus stop in a house that used to belong to my mother. She passed 5 years ago. I came back after that, told myself I needed quiet, told myself I needed space to straighten my head out. Truth was, I didn't trust myself anywhere with too many people. The buses come twice a week. That's it. Wednesdays and Saturdays. If you miss one, you wait. No exceptions. That morning, I'd picked up a delivery from the driver near the school. A couple of cardboard boxes full of canned food. Beans, meat, bread. Enough to last a month if I stretched it. A cousin of mine still worked supply for the National Guard and had slipped a few extras in. I loaded the boxes onto my old sled and started dragging it home, the runners creaking over the frozen crust behind me. The snow was loud that morning, sharp. Every step cracked like breaking glass. That's when I saw the blood. At first I thought it was rust, old oil, something spilled from a truck. But then the color registered, bright red, too clean, too fresh. It soaked into the snow in uneven blotches, like someone had tried to wipe it away with their hands and failed. The farther I walked, the worse it got. The trail curved near one of the empty houses on Riverbend, the one with the lilac bushes that bloom every summer. Right there, the blood dragged off the road and vanished into a drift so high it swallowed fence posts. I walked around it. And that's where I saw him. The body lay half-buried, twisted like it had been thrown there. At first glance, I knew he was dead. No breath, no movement, no sound. That part didn't scare me. I've seen dead men before. What scared me was his face, or what was left of it. Something had chewed it away. Not torn, not clean cut. Chewed. Flesh hung in strips from exposed bone. One cheek was gone entirely, peeled back to reveal teeth still clenched behind blood-soaked gums. The skin along his jaw had unraveled like fabric, pulled loose from his neck in a single long flap. It looked less like an attack and more like someone had taken their time. The blood around him was everywhere. Not splatter, flow, like he'd been alive while most of it happened. I stood there too long enough for my hands to go numb, long enough for my brain to start asking questions I didn't want answers to. Who could do this? And how, in broad daylight? I didn't abandon the sled, didn't drop my supplies. I dragged the damn thing all the way home, locked my door, and then ran straight to the town office. An hour later, I was sitting across from Harold Knox, our town clerk. Tall, thin, gray hair cropped short. The kind of man who listens more than he speaks. He didn't interrupt once while I told him what I'd seen. When I finished, he pulled on his coat and hat and told me to take him there. We walked back together. The drift was still there. The house with the lilacs stood silent. but the body was gone. No blood, no stains, nothing. Just disturbed snow, flattened in places like something heavy had been dragged away. Harold stared at it for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "You been drinking again, Alex?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. 2 months sober. He didn't argue, didn't accuse, just sighed and walked back toward town without another word. That night, I tried to forget. I played games on my computer, drank mineral water, fed the cat. Everything felt normal enough until the power flickered. The screen went black for maybe 2 seconds, long enough for me to see the reflection behind me. Someone was sitting on my couch. Not a person, not really. The face was wrong. Slack, pale, unmoving. Like a corpse that hadn't realized it was dead yet. The power snapped back on. I spun around. The couch was empty. Relief hit me so hard my knees almost buckled. Then I looked at the window and saw him. Blood frozen into icicles along his cheeks. Skin missing in places it shouldn't be. His hand pressed flat against the glass, leaving a red smear that slowly slid downward. That was when he knocked. And everything truly began. The knock wasn't loud. That's what I remember most. It wasn't pounding. It wasn't desperate. It was patient. 3 slow taps against the glass, spaced evenly, like whoever or whatever was out there knew I wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't move. His palm was still pressed flat against the window. Blood had frozen in thin, dark lines between his fingers. Up close, I could see details I hadn't noticed in the snowdrift. The edges of his wounds weren't torn the way an animal would tear. They were uneven, yes, but deliberate in places. Clean slices around the bone, ragged chewing in others. Like more than one thing had been involved. He tilted his head slightly, and for the first time, I saw his eyes. They weren't empty. They weren't glazed over. They were focused on me. I stepped back slowly, heart hammering in my throat. The glass between us felt paper thin. "Go away," I whispered. Not because I thought he would listen, but because I needed to hear my own voice. His lips parted. When he spoke, it wasn't a moan. It wasn't a groan. It was a voice, raw and wet, like air being forced through a throat that shouldn't work anymore. "They cleaned it." The words fogged the glass. "They cleaned the blood." My stomach dropped. He lifted his hand from the window and reached toward the latch. I don't remember deciding to move. I just remember grabbing the shotgun from under the floorboard by the cabinet. Old habit, old paranoia. When I looked back up, he was gone. No footprints, no blood, nothing but the faint red smear sliding down the outside of the glass before freezing solid. I stood there for 10 full seconds, listening. The wind outside was dead still, and somewhere down the road, a dog started howling. I didn't sleep. By morning, the smear on the glass had faded to a dull brown. I convinced myself I'd imagined most of it. Stress does strange things. Sobriety does stranger ones. But when I stepped outside, I saw something I couldn't explain away. The snow near my porch had been disturbed. Not footprints, not tracks, more like something heavy had been dragged in a circle, as if someone or something had paced back and forth for hours. I followed the disturbed snow to the road, and from there, the trail pointed back toward Riverbend, toward the empty house with the lilacs. I shouldn't have gone. I knew that. But curiosity has teeth, and once it bites, it doesn't let go. The house looked the same as always. Two-story modern build, large windows, deck facing the river. Too big for this town. The driveway had been plowed recently. That wasn't normal. This place sat empty 9 months out of the year. I walked up slowly, boots crunching. The front door was locked, but around the side, near the lower foundation windows, I noticed something else. A vent cover had been removed, just enough space for someone to crawl through. I crouched and peered inside. Dark, but warm air drifted out. Someone was heating this place. I backed away and circled the property. That's when I saw Harold's truck parked 2 houses down, engine running. He was standing outside with 2 other men. They stopped talking when they saw me. Harold walked over. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "You told me I imagined it." "I did. There's heat running in that house." He didn't look surprised. "That property belongs to Victor Hale. He rents it sometimes." "Not in February." Harold's jaw tightened. "Go home, Alex." "Who was the man in the snow?" He didn't answer. One of the other men, Dale, I think, shifted uncomfortably. Harold stepped closer. "You saw nothing. You hear me?" The tone in his voice wasn't concern. It was warning. And that's when I realized something much worse than a dead man outside my window. They knew. Not just Harold. All of them. That night, the power went out again. Longer this time. The house plunged into blackness so thick I couldn't see my own hands. And in the silence, I heard breathing. Not from outside, from the hallway. Slow. Measured. I raised the shotgun and aimed toward the sound. The moonlight slipped through the blinds just enough to illuminate the doorway. A shape stood there. Tall. Wrong. Its shoulders were too wide, its head slightly tilted like it was studying me. "Help her," it said. The voice wasn't the same as before. This one was deeper, layered, like 2 voices speaking at once. "In the basement." My throat went dry. "Whose basement?" I asked. The figure took 1 slow step forward, and in the faint light, I saw its face shift. For a second, just a second, it looked like the dead man. Then it changed. Older. Different. A woman. Then a child. Then something I couldn't recognize at all. "You have to hurry." The lights flickered back on. The hallway was empty, but my front door was open, and the wind outside carried something with it. The smell of iron. I didn't wait until morning. I loaded the shotgun, put on my coat, and headed back toward Riverbend. Halfway down the road, I noticed movement between the houses. Flashlights, low voices, people walking in pairs. Not searching, patrolling. And all of them slowly moving toward the empty house with the lilacs. Like ants converging on food. That's when I understood. Whatever was in that basement, it wasn't a secret. It was an arrangement. And I was the only one who hadn't agreed to it. The basement window I'd seen earlier was now sealed, boarded from the inside. But there was light behind it, flickering, not electric. Firelight. Chanting drifted faintly through the wind, low, rhythmic, not quite religious, not quite human. I moved around the back of the house. The back door was unlocked. Inside, the air was thick, warm, too warm, and the smell, rot, meat, sweet and metallic. The floor near the kitchen had scuff marks. Heavy appliances moved recently. The refrigerator stood slightly crooked, and behind it, a narrow opening, stairs leading down. That's when I heard it. A child's voice, very faint, crying, not far below. And beneath that, something else breathing, slow, satisfied, waiting.
I should have turned back. I didn't, because whatever deal this town had made, it was bleeding into my house, and it wasn't done yet. The crying wasn't loud. That's what made it worse. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't hysteria. It was tired, thin, the kind of crying that comes after someone realizes no one is coming. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, shotgun raised, listening. Below me, the air pulsed with warmth. Not furnace warmth, not central heating. Organic warmth. Alive warmth. The crying came again. A girl. Young. Please. The word barely carried. And beneath it, breathing. Deep. Slow.
Massive. I descended one step at a time. Each board creaked louder than it should have. The chanting outside had stopped. The house felt sealed, insulated from the world above. Halfway down, the smell intensified. Iron, rot, sweet decay. At the bottom, the stairs opened into a wide concrete basement. Not the unfinished kind with storage shelves and old paint cans. This space had been renovated. Reinforced walls, industrial lighting, heavy plastic sheets stapled along one side, stainless steel tables, and against the far wall, freezers. 3 of them, one lid slightly open. I didn't look inside. Not yet. The crying came from the right, behind a thick metal door. I moved toward it slowly. The breathing shifted. Closer. Aware. You shouldn't be here, a voice said behind me. I spun around. Harold stood near the base of the stairs. He wasn't alone. 2 other men flanked him, Dale and someone I didn't recognize. All 3 held weapons. But none of them looked angry. They looked resigned. You saw him, didn't you? Harold asked quietly. The man in the snow. He was dead. Harold nodded once. Yes. And then he wasn't. Another nod. He doesn't stay that way. My finger tightened on the trigger. What is in that room? I asked. Harold glanced toward the metal door. Salvation. I almost laughed. Salvation doesn't breathe like that. The floor vibrated slightly. A low sound rolled through the basement. Not a growl, not a roar. More like shifting weight. Something enormous adjusting itself. Dale swallowed hard. We feed it, he said. The words hung there, simple and horrifying. We give it outsiders, Harold continued. Drifters, vacationers, people no one will miss right away. And if someone does? I asked. Harold's eyes flicked up to meet mine. They don't find anything. My stomach turned. You're cannibals. No, Harold said firmly. That's not what this is. He stepped closer. It was here long before we were. The land belongs to it. The river belongs to it. Winters belong to it. He gestured toward the metal door. We tried ignoring it once. The lights flickered. The breathing deepened. Children started disappearing. Dale, the words hit like ice water. You made a deal, I said. Harold didn't answer. He didn't need to. The crying from behind the door rose again. Help me. My pulse thundered. You're feeding children to it. No, Harold. Never ours. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Only visitors. He said it like that made it clean, like that made it different. And the man in the snow? I asked. He fought, Harold replied. He tried to take his daughter and run. My chest tightened. Is she in there? Harold didn't speak. The floor shifted again. Something scraped along concrete. Heavy. Slow. Open the door, I said. Harold shook his head. You don't want to see it. I've already seen enough. I took a step toward the door. Dale raised his weapon. Don't. I swung the shotgun toward him. Move! The lights dimmed, and in the brief half-dark, I saw something slide beneath the crack at the bottom of the metal door. Not smoke, not shadow. Flesh. Pale, wet. It stretched outward like a testing tongue, then retracted. The crying stopped, replaced by a whisper. Alex. The voice was behind me. I turned. No one there. Then the voice again, from the ceiling. Alex. It knew my name. Harold's expression changed. Fear. Not of me, of it. It's learning you, he said. Once it does that, it won't let you go. The metal door dented inward, once, twice. The hinges groaned. Open it, I said again. No, Harold. The third dent split the frame. Concrete cracked, and something pushed through. At first, it looked like bone, long, jointed wrong. Then another limb, and another. Not symmetrical, not organized. A body assembled itself through the broken metal like something trying to remember how humans are built. It was tall, too tall for the room. Its back scraped the ceiling as it unfolded. Its skin shifted, faces flickered across its surface. The man from the snow, a woman, a child, Harold, me, all layered over one another. Its eyes settled last, and they were the dead man's. You broke the agreement, it said. The voice was layered, multiple tones overlapping. Harold fell to his knees. We brought offerings, he stammered. Enough, it replied. Not enough. Its head tilted, and then it lunged. Not at me, at Dale. 1 second he was standing, the next he was gone. Not dragged, not pulled, gone. The creature's body convulsed, and Dale's face appeared beneath its skin, screaming, then silent. Harold. You promised. The creature turned its gaze toward me. You are not theirs, it said. You are not marked. The room felt smaller, tighter. What do you want? I asked. Its limbs shifted, cracked. You saw. It stepped closer. Concrete fractured beneath its weight. You will choose. Behind me, the metal door hung twisted. Beyond it, I could see the child, curled in the corner of the room, bound but alive. You leave, it continued, and they remain. Its eyes flicked toward Harold. Or you take the child. The air tightened, and the town feeds me differently. My heartbeat drowned everything else. You mean me, I said. The creature's mouth opened wider than a mouth should. Yes. Harold looked up at me. Don't, he whispered. Don't damn us. I glanced at the girl. She met my eyes. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She just stared, waiting. The creature extended a limb toward her, slowly. Choose, it said. And in that moment, I understood something far worse than cannibalism. The town hadn't made a deal to survive winter. They'd made a deal because it was easier. Easier than fighting. Easier than losing their own. Easier than being the ones in the basement. I stepped toward the metal door, toward the girl. Harold screamed. The creature smiled. And that was the moment everything in Black Hollow changed forever. I didn't think. If I had, I might have frozen. I grabbed the girl by the arm and pulled her toward me just as the creature's limbs slammed into the concrete where she'd been sitting. The impact cracked the floor like ice splitting under weight. The room erupted. Harold scrambled backward on his knees, screaming something I couldn't understand. The third man bolted for the stairs. He didn't make it halfway up before one of those jointed limbs shot forward and wrapped around his ankle. The sound his body made hitting the ceiling will stay with me until I die. The creature didn't roar. It didn't rage. It simply adjusted, like a machine recalibrating. Its body swelled, faces shifting beneath its skin, Dale's features now clearly visible, pressed outward from the inside like something trying to claw free. I fired. The shotgun blast thundered through the basement, buckshot tearing into its torso. It staggered, not in pain, in irritation. Black fluid sprayed across the walls, thick and tar-like. Where it hit concrete, the surface smoked. The girl screamed. I shoved her toward the stairs. "Run!" She didn't argue. Good kid. I fired again as the creature lunged.
This time, the pellets tore into one of its elongated limbs, blowing chunks from it. But instead of collapsing, the limb simply bent backward and reassembled, bone snapping into new shapes. It moved wrong, like gravity only partly applied to it. Harold scrambled up, hands shaking. "You don't understand," he shouted at me. "You don't understand what happens if you—" The creature's head twisted toward him, too fast. A limb shot forward. Harold didn't even finish his sentence. His body lifted, suspended in midair as his mouth opened in silent horror. The creature's surface rippled, and then Harold was absorbed. Not swallowed, not torn apart. Absorbed. His outline pressed beneath the creature's skin, face distorting as it became part of the shifting mass. The basement lights exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. The only illumination came from the fractured stairwell above, and in that half-light, I saw it clearly for the first time. It wasn't just feeding. It was collecting. Faces, memories, voices. It mimicked the dead because it kept them. "Alex," Harold's voice echoed from inside it. "You shouldn't have." The girl reached the top of the stairs. I followed, firing my last shot downward. The blast slowed it for maybe half a second. We burst into the kitchen. Behind us, the basement ceiling cracked as something enormous forced itself upward. Plaster rained down. The refrigerator toppled. The house shook like it had been struck by a truck. Outside, voices rose. The townspeople had gathered. Flashlights cut through the windows. They'd heard the shots, and now they were coming. The girl grabbed my sleeve. "They know," she whispered. I didn't ask how she knew, because she was right. The front door splintered open. Dale's wife stood there. She wasn't holding a weapon. She didn't need one. Her expression was cold. Behind her, more townspeople filled the yard. Dozens, maybe more.
"Step aside," she said calmly. "It's done." "Not anymore," I replied. The floor beneath us buckled. From below, the creature surged upward, its body distorting through the broken foundation like something forcing itself through a mold too small. The townspeople didn't scream. They didn't run. They dropped to their knees. All of them, in unison. The creature unfolded into the kitchen, its body scraping through beams and drywall as if the structure meant nothing. Snow blew in through shattered windows. Its shadow filled the room. And then, it did something I didn't expect. It turned away from the townspeople, toward the forest, toward the dark tree line beyond Riverbend. The ground trembled as it stepped outside. The townspeople lowered their heads further. Some began chanting, not loudly, not frantically, soft, reverent. I pulled the girl close. "Why is it leaving?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She was staring at the forest. The chanting grew louder. And then I heard something that made my blood freeze. A second sound, from the woods. A response. Lower. Deeper. The creature stopped at the edge of the property. Its body shifted, expanded, and from the darkness between the trees, something moved. Taller. Wider. The trees bent outward as if pushed by unseen force, and I realized something that shattered whatever logic I had left. The thing in the basement wasn't the source. It was the offspring. The offering. The town hadn't been feeding it to keep it satisfied. They'd been feeding it to grow it, to prepare it for winter. The girl's voice trembled beside me. There's more. The forest answered with a cracking sound, like entire trunks splitting. The townspeople began bowing fully now, foreheads pressed into snow. The creature at the edge of Riverbend lowered itself as well, submissive. The larger shadow in the forest shifted closer. I couldn't see it clearly, but I could feel it. Pressure in my ears, weight in my lungs.
Like standing too deep underwater. The girl grabbed my hand tighter. "We have to run," she whispered. "Not toward town, not toward the road. Into the forest," she said. I looked at her like she was insane. "That's where it is." She shook her head. "That's where it isn't looking." Behind us, the smaller creature began dissolving, its body flattening into the snow, merging, feeding. The larger presence didn't step fully into view. It didn't need to. Its shadow alone dwarfed the houses. And in that moment, every single person in Black Hollow belonged to it. Except us. The girl started moving first, toward the tree line, away from the kneeling town, away from the road, into the dark. And for reasons I still can't explain, I followed her. Behind us, the chanting reached a crescendo. The forest swallowed us whole. And somewhere deep between the trees, something changed direction. The forest swallowed sound. That's the first thing you notice when you run deep enough. The wind dies. The crunch of snow dulls. Even your own breathing starts to feel like it belongs to someone else. We didn't speak. The girl ran like she'd done it before. Not blindly, not panicked. She knew where to step, where the snow crust would hold and where it would collapse. I followed as best I could, lungs burning, heart hammering so loud I thought it might give us away. Behind us, the chanting from town thinned out. But something else replaced it. A low vibration in the air. Not a growl, not footsteps. More like pressure building in a sealed room. The trees around us began to creak, not from wind, but from weight. Snow slid from branches without any visible cause. Somewhere to our left, something large shifted its position. Not chasing, positioning. It wasn't running us down like prey. It was herding. The girl stopped abruptly behind a cluster of thick pines and grabbed my arm. "Don't go straight," she whispered.
Why? It wants straight. Her eyes were wide, but not hysterical, focused. How do you know that? She hesitated. Because it listens to what people think is safe. That answer didn't help, but she pulled me diagonally through the trees instead of toward the clearing I'd spotted earlier. And that's when I saw it. To the right, where the open path would have led us, something moved between the trunks. Massive. Slow. Its shape wasn't fully visible, but its outline displaced the forest. Snow fell around it in cascading sheets. One tree snapped in half like dry wood. We would have run straight into it. The girl didn't look surprised. She just tugged my sleeve. "This way." We moved deeper. Branches tore at my jacket. Snow filled my boots. My legs were beginning to shake from exhaustion. Behind us, something scraped along bark.
not rushing, just staying parallel, like it knew exactly where we were without needing to see us. And then, it spoke. Not from behind, not from the side, from ahead.
Alex.
The voice came from the darkness in front of us. Layered. Wrong. I froze. The girl's grip tightened painfully. "Don't answer," she breathed. The voice came again, closer.
Alex, help me.
It was Harold. Perfectly Harold. Same tone, same dry calmness. "I'm still here." A shape stepped out from between two trees. Harold. Snow dusted his coat. His face was pale but intact. No wounds, no distortion. "You left us," he said quietly. "I didn't have a choice." The girl buried her face against my side. "Don't look at his hands," she whispered. I looked anyway. His fingers were too long. Just slightly, barely noticeable, but wrong.
You think you saved her?
Harold asked. "She belongs to it too." His jaw opened, too wide, skin stretching thin, and beneath it, darkness. Not throat, not teeth. Depth. Endless depth. I fired.
The shotgun blast shredded his upper torso, but instead of blood, snow exploded outward. The shape collapsed into powder. Gone. The forest fell silent again. The girl didn't cry. She just kept moving. "How long?" I asked her quietly. "How long what?" "How long have you known?" She didn't answer for a few steps. Then, "It talks to us sometimes," she said. "To the kids." My stomach turned. "What does it say?" "That we're special?" Of course it did. Predators always tell you that. Ahead, the trees began thinning. The highway wasn't far. If we could reach the road, maybe... A scream cut through the forest. High, panicked. Another child. Not far. The girl flinched. "They got him." "We can't stop," I said immediately. She looked at me like I'd slapped her, but she didn't argue, because she knew. The scream cut off abruptly, replaced by that same low vibration. Satisfied. The snow in front of us shifted, not from wind, from underneath. The ground bulged slightly, then split. A pale limb burst upward from beneath the snow, clawing blindly. Not the massive parent, one of the smaller ones. The offspring. There were more. They hadn't just raised one in the basement. They'd been planting them. The limb thrashed. I fired down into it. Black fluid sprayed across the snow. It recoiled, but not in pain, in irritation. More snow cracked nearby. 3, 4, shapes pushing up through the ground like something hatching. The girl pulled me backward. "They're not awake yet." That didn't comfort me. The forest behind us darkened. The larger presence had stopped pretending to hide. It was closing in now. The trees bent outward in a wide arc. Branches snapped in succession. The smaller creatures began to rise fully from the snow, half-formed bodies pulling themselves upright. Not complete, not graceful, but fast. I had 2 shells left. That was it. "Run!" I shouted.
We broke toward the thinning tree line. The smaller creatures stumbled after us, limbs cracking into alignment as they moved. Behind them, the larger one stepped forward fully, and I saw it. Not clearly, not entirely, but enough. It was tall beyond reason. Its body didn't have a single defined shape. It shifted constantly, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Where its head should have been, a cluster of faces. Dozens, all pressed together.
Some screaming, some calm, some whispering. The snow beneath it melted instantly. It didn't hurry. It didn't need to. The smaller ones were driving us toward the road, toward the open, toward nowhere to hide. The girl stumbled. I grabbed her, hauled her upright. One of the offspring lunged. I fired point blank. It dropped, body convulsing. One shell left. The highway came into view ahead, bare asphalt cutting through white fields. If we made it. Headlights appeared in the distance. A truck, coming fast. For 1 second, hope surged through me. But the truck didn't slow. It sped up. And as it got closer, I recognized it. Harold's truck. Except Harold was dead. The vehicle swerved toward us. The girl screamed. The smaller creatures scattered out of its path. The truck wasn't trying to hit them. It was aiming for us. The driver's side window rolled down, and Harold leaned out, smiling, whole, intact. "Run faster," he called cheerfully. The girl looked at me. "They keep them." I understood now. The creature didn't just consume. It replicated. Memories, bodies, voices. The truck roared closer. I pushed the girl forward and turned. Last shell. I didn't aim at Harold. I aimed at the windshield. Pulled the trigger. Glass exploded inward. The truck swerved violently, hit a patch of ice, spun, and flipped. Metal shrieked as it rolled off the road and into a ditch. Silence. For half a second. Then, the larger presence roared. Not loud, but deep, displeased. The smaller creatures hesitated.
The girl grabbed my arm. "Now!" We bolted across the highway and into the opposite tree line. Behind us, the flipped truck began to move. Not burning, not broken. Moving. Like something inside was pushing it upright from within. The forest swallowed us again, but this time, the chase was no longer patient. It was angry, and winter had just begun. We didn't stop running until the forest changed. You can feel it when you cross an invisible line out there. One side belongs to something, the other side doesn't. The trees thinned, the air shifted. The pressure on my skull, the low hum that had followed us since we left the basement, eased just slightly. Not gone, but distant. We collapsed behind a fallen log near a shallow ravine. The girl's breath came in sharp, controlled pulls. Mine sounded like a dying engine. Behind us, in the direction of the highway, something heavy dragged across asphalt. Metal shrieking. Then silence. No headlights. No engine. Just night. "You crossed it," the girl whispered. "Crossed what?" She pointed weakly behind us, toward the deeper forest. "There's a line. It doesn't like to go too far." I swallowed hard. "Why?" "It doesn't need to." That made sense in a way I didn't want it to. Predators don't chase when prey eventually comes back, and Coldwater Bend had been feeding it for years. I peered over the log. Nothing moved. No shapes between the trees. No cluster of faces watching from the dark. But the snow along the edge of the deeper forest looked disturbed, like something massive had stopped just short, waiting. We stayed there until the sky began to gray. Neither of us slept. Every small sound sent my hand instinctively toward a weapon I no longer had ammunition for. At first light, we moved. Not back toward town, not deeper into the forest. We followed the ravine north toward the county road that led out to the nearest state highway. It took hours. The girl never complained.
She never asked about her father again. She didn't need to. When we finally reached the road, we flagged down the first truck we saw, a snowplow heading toward the next county. He almost didn't stop until he saw the blood on my jacket and the girl's hands, red and raw from the cold. After that,
Everything felt distant, unreal. Sheriff's deputies, state police, search teams, questions. Too many questions. They searched the farmhouse first, then the basements, then the riverbanks. They found things: freezers packed with meat, rooms cleaned too carefully, strange markings burned into concrete, and graves hidden beneath old animal pens. Some townspeople were arrested immediately. Some tried to run. Some claimed they knew nothing. And some simply vanished. The official report called it an isolated cult, a desperate rural community that lost its way. Economic hardship, shared delusion, group hysteria. They explained it neatly, filed it away, closed the case. But they didn't search the forest far enough. I know they didn't. Because on the third night after we were taken to a motel in the next county, I saw it again. Not in front of me, in reflection. The bathroom lights flickered for just a second, and in the mirror, behind me, between the shower curtain and the wall, there were faces, pressed together, watching. Not angry, not rushing, just waiting. When the lights steadied, it was gone. The girl, Emily, I later learned her name, was sent to live with relatives out of state. She never spoke about what happened. But months later, when I visited once, she asked me a single question.
Alex Mercer should have died that night. He remembers the sound first.
Because I already
Not
knew.
the pain, not
It
the
doesn't
blood.
starve.
The sound.
It grows.
A rusted handsaw
Cold Water
grinding
Bend
through something
wasn't
it
its
was
first
never meant to
field.
cut.
And it won't be its
Slow,
last.
patient,
The forest still
methodical.
stands. The highway
like someone
still
splitting
cuts through
wood in the dead of
it.
winter.
And somewhere beyond that
And the worst
unseen
part,
line,
he was still
something
conscious,
older than hunger
still breathing,
is waiting for
still
another
thinking,
town.
this
willing
can't
to make
be
a deal.
happening to me. I sold my
3
house.
hours earlier,
I moved
Steel
to
Ridge
2
manufacturing
away.
plant.
I don't
Sector
live near
51,
forests anymore.
machining floor.
But sometimes,
You useless
in winter,
idiot!
when the power
The words
flickers
echoed across
and
the
the
office
screen goes
walls.
black for just a
Alex
second.
stood in front of the plant
I don't
manager's
look
desk,
behind me,
staring at the cracked
because I
tile
already
floor.
know what I'll see.
32 years old,
And it's patient.
shoulders slightly
Very,
hunched,
very
work glove twisted
patient.
tightly in his hands.